So a little bit about me first. What I do is consulting for Liferay. So I work for Liferay, but I never actually do really core development. I go to your places of work and help you guys get stuff done. And what I've seen previously, and especially recently at my current project, which is at Hewlett-Packard, there's a great missing spot of performance metrics in Liferay as a whole. As in, people don't know how to watch the portal and make sure that it's performing really well. So what I want to make sure you guys walk away with is knowing how to do that. Now, I've got quite a few slides, and some of them do have some code and such in them. My goal for this is not for you to learn how to do this today, because it's just not going to work. What I want to do is make sure you have the tools when you leave here to know where to start to be able to monitor your application. So most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today is free, and some of it is open source. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the ELK stack, E-L-K. E is for Elasticsearch, L is for Logstash, and K is for Kibana. Basically what I want to do is use Logstash to parse logs from, say, Apache or Tomcat or JBoss, and store that in Elasticsearch, and then use Kibana as a front-end application to make really pretty graphs that you guys can look at and say, this is what I'm trying to do with my portal, to say, these are my slow pages, these are my fast pages. I don't want to pay attention to my fast pages, but I definitely want to focus on the slow ones. So this is an example of an Apache logger. It took me actually a little bit of time to figure out what I consider to be the perfect Apache logger. And what is key about this is the %T and the %D at the end. That's going to be the time in seconds and the time in microseconds for your pages to load in Apache or Tomcat or JBoss or anything that uses the same logging format. So with this, it's going to actually, on the page loads, it's going to tell you how long that page takes to load every time, right? And the custom log, all that's doing is saying, store this data in this log. That's all it's saying. Last time I did this talk, I got a lot of flack for only talking about Apache, but it's okay. If you're using just a straight app server, if you're not going through Apache, then you can still do this. It's okay. That's how you would do it in Tomcat, but it's almost the exact same in JBoss. WebLogic and WebSphere also have similar options, so you can do this across many app servers. For Logstash, what's going to happen is, what you can see is I've got a path, and the path is to all my logs, and I've got G, T, and then a bunch of question marks. For HP, they have 10 production nodes right now. So it's going to be G1T, and then the node number, or G2T, and then the load number, which is going to tell you what side of the load balancer you're on. So basically, I just said, grab me all the logs from all the Tomcats, or in their case, all the JBosses, and aggregate it into one. So what's really cool about this is when I'm trying to look at the logs, I don't have to go to each individual app server and run tail or grep or awk or whatever I'm trying to run. It's all in one spot, so it's super easy. And the searching is Lucene based, so you can, it's Elasticsearch. So you can find whatever you want. So this is going to take all of my files and just parse them. It's going to break them up into its individual components. This is a mess, and this is what I'm talking about. I don't want you guys to go, oh, I can write this in a second. You're going to get these slides. These are going to be posted. My goal here, once again, is to make sure you know where to start. You're going to grab my slides later. You're going to copy paste this, and it's going to work for you. Okay? So each param basically matches the params in the Apache logger that I showed you earlier. The key ones being those last two, the number, time in seconds, and time in microseconds. 95% of what I do is looking at those. So what this is doing is that Logstash, right, it's reading the file and it's breaking it up, and it's going to send it to two things. It's going to send it to an Elasticsearch server, and in this case, I'm doing a file output as well. I do the file output because I'm never sure it's actually working, because it takes a minute to spin up. Once you're actually using this, you'll definitely want to comment that out, because what you're doing is you're taking all those logs and bringing them into one spot, and that's going to be gigs. It's huge, right? So run that at first, make sure everything's sane, and then turn it off and just go to Elasticsearch. So this is what you end up with, and this is actually kind of visible on this screen. We're taking those, if you ever looked at an Apache log, right, it's a long string, and it's basically illegible. You can't really read the thing. You can see this is breaking it up into a JSON object, and in this case, somebody hit UPP EMEA home, and you can actually see the referrer who sent them. You can see what user agent they were using. You can see the query string. You can see that this page took 20 seconds to load. And that's why I picked this one, because it took a really long time. So I wanted to break this up and see why. What's cool is I can also see that they were looking at the terms and conditions portlet on that page, right? So this isn't like guesswork of trying to figure out what's going on. This is breaking it up for you, and it's really great. So you still don't want to look at it like this, though. It still doesn't look good. What you really want to look at it is like that. This is what it ends up looking like. Okay, this is Kibana. So Kibana is the thing that's reading Elasticsearch and turning everything into pretty graphs. So I'm using the source IP and a geo IP list to build up who's hitting my website from where in the world. The colors are times, so the darker it is, the worse the time. The lighter it is, the better the time. You can see I'm breaking it up by different tags, different destinations. Really cool stuff. You can write all this stuff. There's a ton of examples online for how to break these things up. So what I'm going to show you now from this slide on is going to be actual HP data. Okay, this is from their production website. When we first set this up, everything was working okay, but things were kind of slow, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And you can see that side of the graph, right? Well, I realized that they didn't have any kind of CDN or caching set up, so things could have been faster. What you see right there is when we turned on CDN. Right? These are page load times. So what's cool is it's really hard to visualize, because you're only looking at it on your computer, right? Or the computers you have in your office. You have no idea how the changes you make, how they affect others. This is a graph that's all over the world. I mean, these are hundreds of thousands of requests, and you can watch them all just drop like crazy. And I think what you're looking at here, the blue one, is actually going to be JPEG files, because they were serving like really large JPEGs from the document library on their homepage in a rotator, and they were preloading all the images, so the homepage was like 5 megs. But once they cached all that in a CDN, it got a lot faster. So that was really good. So then the question is that I would present to you is, can you answer that question for me? Can you tell me right now, or just by looking at your server somehow, what the top 10 slowest pages are, or items on your site? And the answer is almost universally no, that nobody has this kind of insight into their portal, which is really bad, right? You want to be able to know this stuff. With Kibana, and with this setup, with the Elk stack, I can tell you right now what my slowest items are, what my slowest pages are, what my slowest requests are. And it's just a simple search, and it graphs everything nicely. So you can see I've got a pretty flat setup here, and then we look at that green one, and we're like, oh my gosh, what is that green one, right? Well, you can't really see the text because it's kind of small. But what that is a WSRP call. And what we found was the way the developers built their WSRP call is they're actually taking images from another system and transferring those over the network, even though it's a public-facing site. They're transferring it over the network and then redisplaying that inside Liferay. So you're looking at the network latency inside of HP's network. That's what that green block is. So when I told them about that, and we simply changed the way they're showing the links to just be a link to the server it's supposed to be on, because it was public anyway, it did that, right? So the green one is now different. It's not even WSRP anymore. It's a different, I mean, it totally dropped off the map. So we took a page that was taking 18 to 20 seconds to load on average, and it went down to about 1, just by using this tool and looking at our data, right? And once again, this tool is free and open source, so you guys can download it and install it, and it's super easy. And this isn't even really limited to Liferay, honestly. You can run this with any web app, so it works really well. And then what you can do is look at it. I mean, there's lots of different ways to view the graphs, so you can actually look at spikes and histograms and values over time, and it's just really, it's really useful once you get using it. So you can also use this thing to say, like, I need to do a production deploy. When can I do a production deploy that's going to affect the least number of users? You can guess, right? You can say, oh, well, we're a school, so most likely I can do it on a Sunday. Chances are pretty good, Sunday at midnight, nobody's going to be on. But I can actually look at my trend lines with this, because this is the number of hits happening over time. And I can say pretty surely, right at midnight of every night, this, whatever local time this was, I can do a deploy and I'm going to affect the least number of users, right? So you can actually get a lot of data from this kind of a tool that isn't even necessarily related to performance, but just how am I going to affect people the least, which would be great. Can you tell me something like, does your website have very many errors? Do users see 404s? Do they see 500s? Do they see, you may know. If you're parsing your Apache logs, you might know. But usually the answer is no. Usually it's, why would we have broken links? Well, because somebody messed up, right? Somebody changed a link and you didn't know it. And you don't know it until somebody tells you. And as a consultant, the last thing that I want is somebody to contact me telling me something's broken. I want to know it's broken the second it's broken, and I just want to fix it. So nobody is inconvenienced, right? So this was funny, actually. When I built this talk, I was doing it against live HP data. And so we're going to walk through what happened when I was building this talk. I was like, okay, this could be easy. I'm going to put HTTP 404s and 500s and everything like that. And I looked at it and I saw that spike. And I went, what is that? What is that spike over there? And nobody's contacted us about this yet. It's just I'm looking at this spike going, this is awful. Something's going on. This is production. This is a pie graph of the data that I just showed you, right? Those are 404 errors. That spike is almost 100% 404 errors. Why do we have so many 404 errors on our production portal? This is bad. Let's find out. So we jump into Kibana, and this is a table view of the exact same data. What you're going to find is I'm sorting by time. So the first 4 are 400 errors. Those are Solr timeouts because they were putting a bunch of search portlets on one of the pages, and it was not Ajaxed, so it would literally just choke the page to death because it was 10 searches happening in a row. But everything below that is 404. And after seeing that, it became really obvious that somebody rebuilt the theme and they didn't put the context path in for their images. They broke it on accident. And so one of the themes was loading and every image in JavaScript link was broken. So I was able to immediately call the dev team and say, hey, I was just building a talk for North American Symposium, and I see that you guys broke your theme. Can you fix that before we start getting calls? And right as I was having that conversation, we started getting emails. Right? So we had it fixed within like 5 minutes. The managers were like, oh, this is so awesome. How'd you do it? And I was like, I just looked at a graph. And I had built it for my own sanity, right? HP didn't even know I was doing it. I just threw it all on. And now it's used pretty heavily inside HP for doing all their server monitoring, which is really nice. So it is a Liferay conference, so we don't want to just talk about Apache. We don't want to just talk about viewing Apache logs, times, things like that, right? So now let's talk about, you have that 8 to 10 to 12 node cluster, or even a 3 node cluster. It doesn't have to be big. And you get all these logs, right, in your Liferay logs, the Java logs, exceptions, things like that. And if somebody calls you up and they say, hey, I've got this portlet and it's failing, and you're like, okay, it's in production. Do you know what node you're hitting? Okay, well, I hope you're putting your node in your session identifier, so at least you can have them look at their cookies to figure out what node they're on. If you're not even doing that, you have no way of knowing what server they're hitting. So now you got 8 terminal windows up, tailing all the Liferay logs, and say, okay, break it. Right? And then you're like, okay, which one? Okay, that one. Great, now I've got it. With this, you don't have to do that because all the logs, we built a logger just for this, which is, you'll get it, that actually watches the Liferay logs, breaks it up into its components, and now we take all those Liferay logs and put them right into Elasticsearch. So you can see here, these are all individual logging lines within Liferay, right? And what happens when I click one of those is it breaks it up like this. So unfortunately, it's a little blurry, but what you can see is This is happening on an undeploy. And the reason I can tell you that one of the services is being shut down right now is because I can see in the log message about the 7th one up, it says unregistering portlets for audit portlet, right? So now I can actually look and say, okay, what node was this? And you can find on here, there's a file, it's a Liferay log, and it's going to give you the node as well, the computer that it came from. So I can see exactly what node was being shut down, what time it was being shut down, and I can look across everything just to see kind of how that all works, right? So that's nice. You set this up, it takes you, it took me about 4 days to get everything working as you see it, about 4 days. And that was good, but we had more problems. We had that search portlet issue where I can see that it's slow, and I can see that the page is slow, but the page has a lot of stuff on it, right? There's web content, there's audits, there's asset publisher, there's search, and I don't know what is slow on the page. I know the page is slow, but that's only one step, right? I need to get further. We need to go deeper. So how do we go deeper? This is another thing that most clients don't use, and I want to make sure that you guys at least know that this exists. So if you want to break the page into its components, specifically for Java stuff, this is so awesome. I use an APM tool named New Relic. For HP, we use it at Cisco. Basically, every client that I go to where they allow me to put it on, and they don't have another tool already, I'll put this one on. Why? The standard version is free. And the installation is simple. It's a jar, you add a Java agent path, and you're done. Or you don't want to do that, you just do Java jar New Relic install, and it'll do it all for you. So it's simple. I'm going to head off a lot of questions at the pass right now, and I'm going to say I use it because it's easy, but it stores things in the cloud. New Relic does. Specifically as an application, it's based on Amazon, it stores things in the cloud. So you're going to tell me I'm an education department, I'm a bank, I'm Department of Defense, we can't store things in the cloud. And I'm going to tell you, then don't use New Relic. They're not the only option out there, they're just what I'm going to show you today. I tell you here, just Google that, and you'll find what you need. And then I figured, why have you do that when I can just show you the graph? So this is from Gartner. This came out October of 2014. So it's right now, right? Just came out. And what we care about is those top 3 up there, right? We can see that New Relic is on the top because they're getting the best reviews right now as far as monitoring. But AppDynamics and CompuWare, which makes Dynatrace, they allow you to store things locally. They'll do pretty much the same things. They're all really good. It's just a question of, do you want to store in the cloud, or do you want to manage it all locally? The rest of the screens will all be New Relic. So this is, once again, all live from HP, right? So this tells me what my slowest actions are. I can look at the transactions, and I don't have to do anything. I want to be very clear here. I installed the jar, I started my app server, and that's what I saw. Okay, so it's really, really cool. So this tells me my slowest transactions. I see that layout action is up there on the top, and I want to know why. So I click it. And when I click it, I see something like that. And what it's going to do is it's going to, every transaction that takes more than a second, it automatically logs and traces it for me and stores it and puts it right on the stack so I can look at it like this. Now remember I was telling you about those Solar portlets, those search portlets that were really slow? That's those render portlet actions that you see on the top. So if I click that, it'll actually give me the stack trace and show me that it's Solar that's being slow. The web server servlets, I can ignore those, right? Because they're just documents. I can see it right there in the URL, which is really great. So if you have a page that's taking a long time, you have the URL right there, right? You don't have to do a whole lot, which is great. So when I was doing that, I was like, gosh, why are these ones taking so long? So I clicked one of them, and this is what I saw. The big red bar is obviously a bad thing. Red bars are bad. That's what I've learned when looking at this tool. But then when you look at it closer, you kind of go, oh, it's actually not really a bad thing. Because the red thing is web server servlet.service. And in the request attributes, I can see that I'm downloading a document, and that's a PowerPoint. And when I just copy and pasted that link into my browser, I downloaded the PowerPoint myself. It was like 20 megs. So I would kind of expect that to be slow. It would be nice if that was cached, right? So then Liferay wouldn't have to serve it at all. Maybe serve that from a CDN. But that's only an option if you're not permissioning it, right? If it's publicly viewable, you can cache it all day long. But if only certain roles can see it, I wouldn't cache it because then there's a possibility somebody else could see it. So, okay, that's cool, right? I'm seeing what's taking the longest, and it's giving me a nice overview. It's giving me URLs. This is really great. But as a developer, I love this fight between database guys and developers, right? It's, your database is slow. My database is fast. It's your program that's slow. No, your database is slow. And you go back and forth, right? Every client, it drives me insane. All the time we have this argument, right? I'm never going to have this argument again, ever. Because I can tell you right now what's slow. I can go to a developer, and a developer can say, no, his database is slow. And I can look at him and I say, look at this graph. Look at it. All those are not slow, right? His database response time is less than a millisecond, right? For selects, for inserts and updates, it is half a millisecond. You can't tell me it's the database, right? And I can, for New Relic specifically, I can do, the free one comes with 5 days of storage, so I can go back 5 days and look at the whole spread. The pay one is a year. So you can actually look at a year's worth of data at a time, which is really awesome. So this is going to tell you right away what's going to happen if you have a nice looking database, things look good. Now there's an interesting thing here. You see the resource permissions select? That's really crushing, right? Look at the baseline on that. See how everything else is nice and thin, but the brown is huge? I mean, we do a lot of resource permissions, but that kind of irritated me. So I actually contacted Liferay support. It turns out that when we looked through their code, they had broken the caching algorithm specifically for resource permissions. So we were actually, just last week, I wrote this a couple months ago, but just last week we finally got the fix in, and now the brown one is just as thin as the green, blue, and the yellow one, right? So they went from like 5-second page load times to like 1.5 seconds, because we're doing a lot of calls, right? And I can also look at it in a different view. If I don't want to look specifically at the database, but I just kind of want to get a holistic perspective of my entire site, right? In the middle, I have my Liferay. On the left, I'm going to have my another Liferay node that's using Ajax. They're talking to each other, so that's a response time for that. The end user, I am actually injecting JavaScript at the head and the foot of the page and getting page load timing from a user's perspective. So that's what that one is. The database, you can see we're averaging 0.72 milliseconds. This is over a 30-second or 30-minute window. So that's really fast. And then the other one is the load balancer, 30 milliseconds. What's actually kind of fun about this is I got a call one day. They did a production deploy, and they said, oh my gosh, the portal's so much slower, right? What's happening? And I just threw this up, and I saw their database was up to 5 milliseconds. Which you wouldn't think is a big deal, but when you're making like 1,000 calls per page load or 500, it adds up very, very quickly. Turns out that when they did a failover from the East Coast to the West Coast for an update, they didn't fail over the databases as well. So the West Coast Liferay was talking to the East Coast database. You're done, right? I mean, that's just going to kill you time-wise. And nobody knew, right? These people, they're talking and talking and talking, and I just look at the picture and I go, your database times are 5 times what they normally are. Why? Get on a DBA, okay, this is why. Switch it over, everything dropped back down. So it's about visibility. That's what I want to push here. All these tools will let you look at the JVM. So I can actually look live at all my nodes. I can find my heap space. I can find my Eden space. I can find my survivor space. When I came into HP, they had done 0 tuning on their garbage collector. So they were doing full stop the world GC events. You know, it was a total mess. And we actually used New Relic to figure that out, because when I came on, stupidly, I assumed that all that had already been covered. And so when we came in and we just saw their memory spike up and hold, and then a full stop the world and then drop, and this tool just tells us right away, right? So we can actually look here, and you got your old gen there, and they're running 12 gig heap, by the way. And you can see what's cool here about the 12 gig heap. Look at their garbage collection. Look at their CPU time. If there was an actual concurrent mark sweep, and this is a 6-hour window, it would show up as yellow. All you see here is par news, and look, it's under 0.5% of the CPU for the entire time. Their garbage collector, because we keep having a developer that said, oh, our garbage collection's bad. It was, but once something's bad, people have a really hard time getting over it when it's fixed. They want to keep going back to it because it was a known issue. We point that and say, it's not your GC, it's something else. There's something else going on. So let's say your page is slow, and your GC's fine, and everything's looking good, and Kibana is showing like a slow page, but you can't really figure out why. What you can do is you can actually live profile for any of these apps on any of your nodes. You can run a profiler, and it's actually not that intensive. You can do it in production and not notice it, which is great. So we had an issue where one of our nodes completely locked. Totally locked. And of course, IT is running around with their hair on fire, trying to figure it out. And they're like, reboot the node, reboot the node. And I say, no, wait. If you reboot the node, it's going to fix it, but it's not going to fix it, right? It'll fix it this time, but not next time. Let's run the profiler. So we run the profiler. And if you've ever taken threads, like thread dumps, JStack in a row, trying to watch your threads and see what's going on, it's kind of a pain, right? And there's tools for that. There's IBM's thread dump analyzer that you can use for free. It'll load the text files up and kind of show you in a grid, but it's still not pretty. And you still have to look at it, and you still have to think. And I don't want to waste time thinking when I can have an application tell me what the problem is. That node, the IT had loaded up a firewall that had blocked the SQL Server port, and they fought me tooth and nail until I showed them this picture. And I said, I did a 5-minute profile on that thing. I did thread dumps for 5 minutes, and this is what New Relic told me. SQL Server was stuck in read for 100% of 5 minutes. Your node's down. I can't hit your database. There's nothing that I can do about that, right? They checked the ports, figured it out, bounced the node, haven't had the problem since. What's cool here is the ease of use, right? All these tools will do this for you. You can profile, and they tell you where the problem is to the method, right? The class and method, they're telling you right away what's going on. We had the same problem with Solar servers going down, exact same fix. You look at it, and you're trying to figure it out, and 100% of the time, or 80% of the time, it's stuck on Solar read. Okay, let's look at the Solar servers. Oh, look, they're all down, right? Or your main cluster's down at least. It does more, though. For any tool like this, it'll look at more than just your application. It'll also look at your raw server data. Can you tell me if something bothers you about this picture? The CPU is at 100%. On I/O wait. Look at your disk I/O utilization. See that green line at the top? That's not the border of the box. That's your utilization, right? What happened was they lost an NFS drive. And it just fell off the face of the planet. Like, they had no idea. And we were looking at it, everything slowed down. I can tell you right now, it's just the picture, it's awesome. You can look at network details. I can tell you what bandwidth is going for all your network cards. And you can look at all your disk details, your mounts. You can see this is what I was talking about, the main mount. I/O utilization stuck at 100%. There's your problem. You can do this stuff without being told that there's a problem. I keep this going. You can set up alerts. It'll tell you, oh, you're approaching the threshold that you set up. It'll do pager duty. It'll do it to groups. It'll do it to your IT. It'll do it just to you. You can set up, it's just really cool. So use some sort of application performance management tool and avoid having those customers and management call you and yell at you because something's broken because you already knew it was broken. If you guys want help or any more details, I'm happy to show you, and I have authorization to show you live HP.com's details. Just find me. I'll throw up New Relic. We'll go look at Kibana, and I can show you exactly what's happening this second on any of the sites that I'm monitoring. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right. All right, we have 2 minutes for questions, so I guess everyone's so impressed that no question.
It was that awesome. Everybody's like, I'm sold. I'm sold. That's it.
Come on, give him a question, at least one.
Okay, right. And we're also running this. I mean, since we have time, I thought I would actually run over because that was a 45-minute talk. We're running this in Amazon. We're running it in Rackspace. We're running it at HP and Bare Metal. We're running it on VMware servers. This runs really well across all stacks. If you happen to be on a cloud-based provider, you actually get an increased level for free. So there's the light version that's free. And if you happen to go to, for example, newrelic.com/AWS, they may or may not have a link for a free standard lifetime account that would normally cost. They don't actually check to see that you're on Amazon. It just kind of works. That's up to you guys. But it's awesome. So please, monitor your servers.
Thank you.
Yeah.